Alright guys, as I'm sure you've guessed from the title of the video, I passed the first FTMO challenge. Although actually it did take me 1 week and 1 day. I started on Tuesday, finished on Tuesday, and if you want to be really pedantic, then technically I haven't passed the challenge until I complete the 10 days minimum trading time because I hit the profit target in 6 days. So I've checked their terms and conditions, and it seems it's fine for me to open really small trades for the remaining few days that don't really affect the balance, but they count as active trading days. So assuming that I haven't got that wrong, and assuming I don't have a fat finger problem and open big position sizes by accident, then I should have the challenge passed, and by Tuesday next week, I'll move on to the second one. So as you can see, my first trade was taken on the 18th of January, final one on the 25th of January when I hit the profit target, and the trades after that, you can see the position sizes are tiny, and those are the ones where I'm trying to complete the active trading days, but the profit target is done. And you may remember last week, I put out a video where I was explaining my opinion about FTMO and telling you that I was going to be taking the challenge. I said that I'd paid the fee, but I was waiting for that first trade to kick things off, so I hadn't started it yet. And I didn't know if I was going to complete it first time or not. I mentioned that at the end of the video, but I did say that the challenge didn't seem so difficult, so I anticipated that I would be able to pass. Now, the date of that video you can see is the same date as the first trade that I opened, and it's important I point this out because I think a lot of people will go through that challenge again and again, which I think you can pass just by gambling, but you have to do it a few times to make sure you can pass it. And I think people pass it and then put videos out explaining that they passed the FTMO challenge to generate some interest for themselves without telling people how many times they went through it to pass. So I think this is the right order to do things if you want to be transparent. Say that you're going to do the challenge, then do the challenge. And so in this video, I want to be transparent about my experience and pass on some of the lessons that I've learned that you can take on board with your trading. Because even though I completed it in 6 days, that doesn't do it justice just how difficult I found it, mainly for mindset and trading psychology reasons. And so I wanted to explain them in this video and sort of go through what I went through. So the first thing is, you may remember if you've been following this channel for a while, that last year we put out a video that was explaining this challenge that I'd done with my team, where we wanted to see who could win with the highest return with 1 month of trading. We all had a small trading account, who can generate the biggest return in 1 month within certain restrictions. And we were trash talking each other and sort of amping up the pressure. And it led to me having some sort of weird trading psychology issues that I've not really experienced since I was a beginner. And I was like, why is this happening? So I had to sort of dig in and figure out what was at play there. And what I realized, other than the pressure of wanting to win, of, putting all this pressure on myself after all the trash talk, it was also 2 factors: a sense of urgency and a sense of scarcity. And so in that video, I explained this sort of list of guidelines that you could take on board with your trading to avoid this feeling of urgency and scarcity. So do's and don'ts for your trading. Now, the thing about the FTMO challenge is that the way it's set up sort of goes against all of those guidelines, and it generates this feeling of urgency and scarcity again. So I went through it again, and I'd forgotten I went through it last year. I wasn't anticipating it, but I experienced it again. But as well as those factors, which I think anyone doing the challenge can probably experience, I also had a bunch more mental pressure on myself, which I didn't anticipate, which is, first of all, I'd told you guys and our members and my friends and family that I was doing this challenge because I thought it was quite interesting. So I had this weight of expectation on my shoulders. I knew I had to perform. And as well as that, I've been trading now, I've been consistently profitable for over 10 years. I first got funded 10 years ago, 2012, so it's 10 years to this year. That was when it was private funding, so someone had seen my trading results and they decided to invest a big amount of capital in me. Changed my life, meant I could quit my job, trade full time. I've done things since then to prove that I can walk the walk. We've got public trading accounts before the challenge last year. I do live stream trading sessions where I don't do things in hindsight, I explain it as I'm doing it. And every time I come through showing what I could do with my trading. And yet that stuff kind of goes unnoticed, it's under the radar, it's underappreciated, and people still write articles or comments about me claiming things about like that, things that aren't true about my trading or me. So I know that at any point, if I don't pass whatever challenge I've set or I don't prove my trading, then it's only going to add fuel to that fire. It doesn't matter if it's one time and many times before I've proven myself. That one time is what they'll sort of latch on to write things about me that aren't true. And yet everyone can have a bad day in the office, a bad month in the office. So I was a bit worried, to be honest. I was thinking, okay, as much as I've said I don't know if I'll pass first time, if I don't pass first time, this is going to look pretty bad. So I had this sort of weight of expectation. I have to pass first time. I've got no other option here. And so I reverted to really active trading, the likes of which I haven't done for many years. And the reason I stopped it many years ago, I've explained in many videos before, is because it caused me like harm to my health. It caused me to break down physically because it's so intense. Your body is like this cocktail of psychological and physiological responses when you're under that sort of stress and pressure, and you can't be under that for prolonged periods of time. So what ended up happening is, rather than me being able to balance my trading with other things that I do normally, like how I normally trade each week, I had to be 100% focused on the trading. It was extremely intense. I was under pressure the whole time. The best words to describe all of it was tension. It was not the nicest experience, to be honest. It wasn't fun. But because of that, it meant that I got my best performance out of myself and completed the challenge in that amount of time. But there were ups and downs. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult. So based on that, what I would suggest for other people that are going through this challenge is to put things in place, or to avoid things or do certain things to offload this pressure. And the first thing is about this feeling of it being the only time that you can pass it. I felt if I didn't pass it this time, that's it. And so every trade I made suddenly had much more importance to it. So imagine that you have saved up a certain amount of money to go through the FTMO challenge. Let's say that you've done the £800-900, whatever it is, to do the big account like I was doing. Don't go for that challenge. Instead, divide that amount of money up into a few different times, let's say 3 or 4, and go for one of the smaller challenges. Or if you have the money, put aside a certain amount of capital, like let's say that you have £5,000, put that aside to do the big challenge a few times, so that you're not relying on doing it that one time. Because what's going to happen is, you're already under pressure because you've got this 30 days to complete it in. Yes, you can have extensions. Yes, you get another go if you're already profitable and so on. There are so many factors you have to keep in mind. If you feel this is your only chance to succeed at it, it's going to amplify all those feelings and make it much more difficult. Trust me from my experience. So instead, divide it up into like smaller amounts. So let's say rather than going for the $200,000 account, you're going for one of the smaller ones, but you know you've got a few chances to pass it. So if things are going wrong with the first one, okay, and you lose it, no problem, you go again. You've only lost time. And as soon as you do pass, you just need to make sure that you already know you're consistently profitable enough that your returns that you'll be able to take from the account after you're funded can repay what you've put in to achieve that goal in the first place. And if you do go for one of the smaller accounts, use your profits from that account to start with to build up this amount that you can then use to go for the bigger account. So don't think it's your only chance to go for the big account. Start with the small one, use the profits to go for the bigger one after, or whatever process they have for scaling up to the bigger accounts. I'm not entirely sure what you can use for it, but just keep that in mind because it's a big, big factor that will affect you psychologically. Then in terms of the other things that I think you need to have in place, we first need to break down the challenge and think about the factors that are at play. So you've got this deadline, 30 days to achieve the return. Yes, you can get an extension. Yes, it can renew if you're in profit. And that's the other thing we've got to keep in mind is that it can renew if you're in profit. You've got a maximum that you can lose each day of 5%. You've got a maximum you can lose overall of 10%, and you have to hit a 10% target. So I've got some notes here I'm going to look down at. There are a few things you need to have in place. You need to have a time management strategy. You need to have an overall strategy for the type of trades you're going to take. You need an account balance strategy, and then I've already mentioned that you need to make sure it's not your only attempt. So let's go through each of those one by one. The time management strategy means you need to think how your approach to your trading is going to change towards the start of the 30 days compared to the end. Because at the end, we know that, first of all, if you're close to the profit target, I believe you get an extension of 14 days. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't know the entire rules about that one. If you're profitable at the end of the 30 days, but you don't hit the target, you get a renewal, you get to do it again. And so what do we need to do as we get close to that 30 days? If we're close to the target, hold on for that extension. Towards the end of that extension, if you still haven't hit your profit target, you might as well take a big risk. As long as you're not going to hit the 5% daily target, take a big enough risk that you have a chance to hit the overall target, but would still stay profitable if you don't hit it. So worst case, you're going to have to go again, but at the stage you're at, you're going to anyway. And best case, you get to pass it. And if you're at the start of the challenge, that's when you could take your bigger risks in terms of risking losing like momentum that you've got, because you've got more time to rebuild afterwards. The next thing is the overall strategy for the type of trades. You don't want to approach it in your normal way of trading. what I believe you need to do is increase your probability of success. So if you're like me and you trade normally asymmetric risk rewards, then your success rate will often be below 50% because the price has to move further for you to take a profit than it does for you to take a loss. You want to change that up and increase your probability of success because you don't have the time to deal with any drawdowns that take a while to overcome. So you need to be selective about how you're doing that. Then with the account balance, you need to make sure that as you're around zero or going into drawdown, you're risking the smallest amounts possible. Because let's say that you start at zero and you lose 1%, that's not just like losing 1%, that's making the challenge that quite a bit more difficult. Because think about it, if you lose 1%, you now have 9% drawdown available to you to make 11%. If you lose 2%, you now have 8% drawdown to make 12%. If you lose 5%, that's 5% available to make 15%. The challenge gets much, much more difficult. So you need to make sure that your losses, your drawdowns are tight around there, and you only start building up your risk as you move into profit, okay? And one thing to keep in mind is that we need to stop looking at this as a 10% challenge, like 10% drawdown, 10% success, 10% return. Instead, think about your usual trading and change the scales of things. So let's say that you consistently make around, on average, 5% per month, and your drawdown is like far less than 5%. Let's say that you are 2% drawdown on average with 5% profit. Okay, well, you do your normal trading then, but double your position sizes and just treat it the same. You see, there are ways around all of these things. Now, I know that you probably want to know what my exact approach was to doing all of this, beyond just like those things that you need to have in place. And I will be sharing it with you, I will. But I'm not going to share it with you yet for a couple of good reasons. The first is that I haven't completed the second challenge yet. So I don't want to speak too soon, tell you as if I'm, this is easy and follow my lead, and then I go and fail the second challenge, because who knows, like I said, you can have a bad month in the office. But the second thing is that I want to make sure this is not me speaking from survivorship bias. I want to, at the end of this entire process, go back on a simulator or back testing and make sure the approach that I'm using would work time and time again. That it's the right approach to use, and iron out any flaws before I explain it to you, so that I'm not just telling you something that worked for me this one time, but if I did it again and again, I'd fail with it. So I will share with you how I did it, but I will only share it with you after I've completed the entire challenge and I'm funded. However, if you are one of our members, in our live stream on Wednesday, I did talk you through the trades and the approach. So if you remember, you can check out, it's towards the end of that live stream. And speaking of our membership, we're actually closing the membership for new members on Monday. That's the end of the month, 31st of January 2022. This is not a marketing spin. It's not something to create fake scarcity. We're closing the doors on that membership for good, not taking on any new members. If you want to know what this means and why we're doing it, I'll leave a link in the description box to a video where I explain that announcement a few days ago, so check that one out. But what I can tell you about the challenge was that it was mainly based around 5 overall opportunities that were, I would say, at extreme ends of a market. And the thing that got me across the line, the trick to it all, was how I approached my scaling in and scaling out. So it was about finding a strong opportunity and then scaling in aggressively when I knew I could. And those opportunities were long pound dollar, short WTI oil, long euro Aussie dollar, long dollar franc, and long New Zealand dollar. And if you're a member of our mailing list, you can sign up in the description box, it's free to join. Then I'll, over the weekend, put out a video, I'll email you it, with a breakdown of some of those trades, explaining what the factors were that led to me opening those trades. And that's something I do regularly, and I'm going to continue doing this year, which is putting out these trade breakdown videos for you to explain my trades and what you can learn from those. So guys, overall, those are my experiences. It was very difficult. Don't let the fact I did it very quickly mislead you and make you think it's easy. It is difficult. If you're going to do this, if you're going to go through all of this effort, make sure you know for sure that you're consistently profitable and you can achieve this, because you don't want to go through all of this only to end up losing the account afterwards. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the future videos on the FTMO challenge. I'll tell you after the second challenge is complete, and then I'll do that follow-up, like I said, about how I approached it all. And assuming I get funded, I will do a video once we do the first withdrawal and that kind of thing. So subscribe to the channel. If you like these videos about the FTMO challenge and funded accounts, hit the like button. It seems the last one was very popular, so I assume it's something that you guys want to hear about. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a good weekend. Take care, guys.